had this going at the start, just as an intro to the segment. And hold on. Yeah. So you're feeling quite awesome, are you? I'm feeling pretty good too, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, although something does pop to mind that was up for me earlier in the week, and it's the idea or the fear of or the avoidance of feeling hated by somebody. Like disapproved of, when you meet people and you can just tell that you're not this enough, or especially with two girls in Catholic schools. Something that's been coming up for me.
So immediately you said that, and I had this sinking feeling go down into the belly. So, damn, I had the thought that we could do something a bit more fun today, but
we can. I was just dragging something up. I'm up for anything.
Maybe we can combine the two. For me, fun is this kind of direct inquiry. So when there's no pressure for suffering, there's no that movement away or towards doing something, then we've got a bit more sort of rein to actually see what's here and what our experience is. And so really, a big part of that for me is this sense of me, is what the experience of me is. So how do we work this out? So the thought is that, okay, we've got a sense of me that is hated, and then we can look for it directly. But I don't know. I don't want to force anything. Maybe if we just keep that in the backs of our minds, that we can look in that sort of directed way. Because definitely, I've got a quite strong immediate feeling for this idea of being hated, and it's like a very sombering thought, actually. So, you were saying that it's a little bit specific with the Catholic school. I don't know if that was a joke or not, but is there something specific that comes in? With that?
So what? Not really, but what I notice is, so I go into more of a locked up sort of afraid feeling in the body, and go into all these strategies to avoid it. So when I go to these schools, because they're at two different schools, I have this thought in my mind that I have to be a certain way. The goal of monitoring my behavior or changing my behavior is so that I don't feel disapproved of or hated for not being, just purely for the fact that I'm not Catholic. And I just notice how I behave at the schools. It's not.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And my kids caught me out. We went and caught up with one of the mums from the Catholic school, and then when we left, one of my girls comes up to me and she's like, "Oh, Mum, you don't have to worry now. You can just be yourself around her because she says fuck too." So even my kids are noticing that I'm not being myself.
Yeah. Okay. So something else comes in a little bit for me then too, like the sense of not. like there's a sadness in the sense of not being able to be myself in that regard, in terms of what you're talking about. So something else comes in as well, like this idea that, if we're acting and we know that we're acting, there isn't necessarily suffering. Or is there a should here that says that I should be this way or that way? Do you know, like there's definitely a like a positive reason to adopt, a nice person stance in this regard, because it doesn't give any pressure, and it doesn't, it doesn't open you for ridicule and things like that. But if it's
maybe it's appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you suffering when you do it?
I think for
I guess
me,
that's the question.
I think there is a little bit there, because the way I am, I really like, and I want to make a connection.
Yeah.
And and there's like a frustration there that I can't reach everyone. Yeah, there is a bit there. Maybe it's unworthiness or something. So I feel like I've got a movement towards people that's not reciprocated.
Yeah. So it's coming back to this sense of hate again, not being liked, not being able to be liked by everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that this kind of direct inquiry actually might work in this situation, because we could go into this like being hated and the things that are around that. But also there's like the direct sort of path too, is what is it that tells us that we need to be liked by everyone? And what is it that tells us that we shouldn't
it feels like a need.
have? Yeah, there feels like there's a sort of this big should in this regard. Definitely, I can relate to what you're saying too. I mean, I'm bringing up the facade of being at the Catholic school and whatnot, but so for me, what happens is it actually settles into something when I look at this idea of being like separate and not liked by the group. It's the sense of falling back into like a aloneness, and there's a sense of being rejected that comes with that. And then I'm just like listening a little bit to the stories, that because this introversion happens where it's like I'm looking inside, I come back in and I go inside of myself almost. That's a really interesting sensation as well, like a really interesting feeling of turning inwards, as opposed to the outwardness of a group, of being there with a group and like looking out. And that's like quite strange to me. And I'm just waiting to see if there's any self-talk about, you're this or you're that. But to be honest, I'm just a little bit surprised that I haven't felt that turning before. I haven't been very aware of that outwardness and then the turn back inward. So that's predominantly what I'm experiencing. I don't hear any talk around it. Happy to hear what's going on for you.
Yeah, well, what I'm noticing for me is that I go. Oh, I can hear myself on your speaker. It's like it probably comes under the fear umbrella, and it's like a waiting. To see if I'm being approved of or if I'm behaving in the right way, rather than having that autonomy of, this is me. If you don't like it, too bad. I just noticed this watching, like I'm watching the faces of everybody there to see if I'm fitting in or behaving how I should behave, rather than having a center in myself.
Mm.
And it feels it's like a feeling of being ungrounded and uncentered.
Yeah.
And it's a very familiar feeling, going right back to school.
For me, it's coming in as sort of the mechanism at the moment. And when you said this sort of not being centered in yourself, that really showed me quite clearly that, because I'm a little bit playing around with this feeling of outwardness, with that need, like looking out for people's responses and looking at their faces and whatnot. And then I'm like allowing this kind of inwardness that happens when that, when there's no, well, either there's no one outside of me or there's a rejection, and then there's this inward sort of flicking that's happening. And I was just playing around with that feeling of going inwards and going outwards. And then when you talked about centering, I was like, oh, okay. It sort of showed me a little bit more of the mechanism, in that it's happening quite high in the experience. So where my eyes are, and basically it's happening in the mind. When you talked about centering in the self, I had this feeling of anchoring in the body, and it had a different quality. This opening and closing mechanism had a different quality, because I wasn't being drawn out, and then I wasn't being kind of, like reflected back in. It's a little bit hard to explain, but there was a different quality to it, where I wasn't getting sucked out and losing myself in the need of being with people. And I can see that in my mind. I see the group there, and I see myself in the image being, being a bit desperate almost to engage in that way. And then when it clicks back in, and there's this inward introversion of like, oh, what is it about me, and that type of talk being generated without that center, that feeling of what's going, like what's happening in the body. I don't know. There's a, like that generation that seems to be happening in my mind just kind of goes out of control. What about you, mate?
Yeah, so I think I think what you were describing is similar what was happening to me. So I can see looking out at people and wishing that I was their friend and wishing that we were connected because it's enjoyable, right? But then there's the fear of, in being myself, that we may disagree. And so I can see avoidance of conflict is there. In being myself while engaging with others. And that's got that freeze feeling with it as well, like that I was talking about before. I can feel it in my shoulders and my arms, like a tensing, because I don't want conflict. I don't want a difference of opinion. I don't want to have to assert myself. I want like a fantasy of, lovely, everyone getting along so lovely. But then it comes back to this feeling of being unable to make these connections because there's something about me that stops me from being likable or something. And that's like a feeling of isolation and aloneness and separateness, mostly in the tummy and the center. And what keeps coming up for me, like in my mind, is being at school and feeling like an endless day with no choice but to engage and be good.
Yeah.
And it seems so long until you get to go home.
And what happens when you get home?
I can let it all out. I can be angry at Mum. I can relax. I can go out into the paddocks. I can do whatever I want. I don't have to be on hold, like the holding. I don't have to hold myself. I can just feel the, interesting. What comes with that is a feeling and a thought of like, oh, well, fuck them anyway. I don't want them anyway. I don't want to be their friend. Like a rejection of the whole idea of wanting connection. I don't need anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Like the polar opposite, with no center.
Yeah. How does that stance feel?
As I'm talking, yeah, I was just about to say that feels as a pressure on my collarbones. And it's actually sad.
Mm.
And sitting with that sadness is like a question of like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I be like, such and such?
Yeah. Does that person come into the mind? Like, does a specific person come into the mind for comparing?
No, it seems like a lifelong pattern. I could bring up anyone. Yeah.
So do you see yourself in the moment?
Yeah, the main images of me as a kid in my room, feeling like a bit of a reject, social reject.
Yeah.
And you're quite strong in the shoulders and the collarbone. And I could just sit with that.
Yeah. I actually want to go back a little bit, because something that you said again, it like piqued something in me. So you were saying, I don't know, I forget actually, but there was one point that you made that made me sort of go forward in the thought. And so I'm sitting here and I'm like observing this outward inward movement and then the feeling of it. And then I recognize that, okay, the thing that I want is that, that's right, the need got met in my mind. So there was an outwardness, and then I saw the image in my mind of, like holding someone and connecting with a friend or something like that. And there was a nice feeling in the body. And then, it was like the range happened where, okay, I saw that this outwardness happened again, but there was no connection. And then there was the feeling of emptiness, and that there was this a little bit of addiction between these feelings of wanting to feel connected and, like together with someone, and then not feeling that. And and it was interesting to notice that, there's actually a feeling and an image that's coming, that I want something and I don't want something, and that's driving the mechanism. And then as I sat with that, it sort of toggled through to the different like the different versions of that I've experienced, where there was a connection made that didn't feel good. And then also there was a time when I was by myself and it felt good. It felt nice just to be by myself. And I recognized that this action is about chasing this feeling and chasing a feeling, but also, trying to get away from a feeling as well. Both of those were there with this kind of inward outward perspective and movement. And then I was following along with you quite nicely, and something came at the end in regards to you being in your room, and I resonated with that. I resonated with being in my own room, getting in trouble or something like that. And the question that came was, like, I can see that this might be a moment of escape in some way. Being young and not really being able to, like, for me, I'm seeing like I'm sent to my room. This is when I was quite young, being sent to my room, and I'm angry and I don't know how to deal with it. I don't know how to deal with the rejection. It sort of moves into this, I'm rejected, and then there's some sort of childish thoughts of maybe there's something wrong with me. It's not so coherent, but the feeling's there and the sentiment of being rejected is there. And I'm kind of just staying there and watching that, and I'm noticing that there's a little movement into playing with something to distract myself, even though again I don't really understand. And then the thoughts come back in, and I'm angry again, and then maybe I lie down on the bed, and so I try and make myself go to sleep. And maybe I even do have a little nap. And that's another way maybe that I've brought in to get rid of these feelings. Tiredness. Okay. And then at the end, what comes in is like being called out and having to apologize. And there's this emptiness to the apology. It's just words. And I see that, okay, that's another way to kind of get around this whole situation, is just to apologize with empty words. And I'm being taught these things experientially rather than, I'm not being explained these things. It's kind of just happening. And I'm like, somewhere within me, this child within me is like going, okay, I can use that. I can, again, not so verbally. But yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, and I can just sit there, mate. I'm just watching that move through.
Okay. Yeah, so when you were talking about escaping, I could really relate to that word, and I can feel the pressure in me now just thinking about how I feel when I'm in a social situation. It's like this pressure that I just want to escape, whilst at the same time really wishing that I could with someone. Very like, yeah, again, all in my collarbones, and it's like this, it's like a frustration. Like, why don't people see me? Why don't people want to talk to me? It's all about them having the choice and the power, and not me having the choice and the power to go and talk to someone.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it feels like it could explode. It's like, a frustration, like a frustration at failed attempts. And it brings some sadness. Yeah. And then again comes the, we'll stuff them anyway. I'm just going to go home and I'm better off away and without them anyway. The same cycle as before. What's coming up is on the weekend, I took my daughter to an 8th birthday party. Yeah. And I spent quite a lot of that birthday party sitting alone because everyone had known each other for years, and I'm like the newcomer.
Mm.
Yeah, it's the same sensation all through my upper chest and my collarbone.
Yeah.
It's like humiliation as well.
Mm.
And the thought comes up, I wish I was different. Yeah, I wish I was different, then I wouldn't have to feel this.
Yeah. Can you allow that? It's interesting. I'm following along too. Can you allow that thought to come up into the mind? Like allow your imagination to create this image of you that would be different, that would be accepted in all situations, and notice how that feels. And and what happens.
Mm. Interesting. I think I prefer to sit on my own. So what happens is what happens is all of these thoughts, it's like I'm watching myself being very social, and the thought, gee, how can I get out of this conversation? Oh, geez, I'm talking too much. Oh, geez, I didn't treat that person properly because I was in a rush to get to the next person. It's like, yeah, all these doubts about being confident and being social seems like a big risk of doing something wrong. Yeah, very much in my belly, like dread, like, oh God, I'm putting myself out there, I'm going to fuck up.
Mm.
And then leaving the party with a lot of shame and embarrassment. So I'm seeing a bit of a shift here. So before it was, what's wrong with me? Why don't people want to talk to me? Rah, rah, where the emphasis was on everybody else.
Mm.
And now it's like tilting over to seeing that I'm choosing to be like that because I'm afraid of feeling shamed and embarrassed. I can see my role in it now instead of being the victim. I could just sit there, Luke.
So mine is like going a little bit in a different way, like a different role or personality when I put myself in that position. And I notice as well that this is maybe a tendency I have to, because if anything, I kind of go the other way. I'm a little bit more like talking to everyone, and you know, so I see an arrogance in me, and it's sort of dismissive. I see this role of me a little bit dismissive and sort of unkind and unaware at times. So, and then for me, the penny drops a little bit in that, okay, there's a reason that people might hate me. And the reason is this particular identity or role. that when I slip into this identity and role, then there's a reason that people might hate me if we come full circle again, or dislike me, or not want to be around me. And I mean, I see the reason for it too. I see the reason for the identity, the role, because it's sort of a way of skimming over feelings. It's a way of skimming over that feeling of anxiety or fear of being seen in a particular way. And it's almost like making people see me in a particular way, in my mind anyway. Do you know? It's like a manipulation or a control, to put that fear, sense of fear over here, that sense of me being afraid and, being small and weak, and it just glides over that and puts this other thing out in front, and okay, and then sort of settling into that, like seeing the whole picture of that. There's a relaxation that happens in the body, and I can see there's a relaxation that happens in the mind too. And it falls back into this not knowing, sort of not knowing and just being here. And that either of those roles can come up and take over at any point, but just in this moment there's a I don't know, like a plainness or a neutrality that's here, that doesn't need anything, and it's not moving in any way. It's just here, and it's not looking for connection. I think because there is connection, like I feel here. Actually, I feel I need to have a quick pee. Okay, I'm coming back.
Okay.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry for that.
It's okay. Gotta go when you gotta go.
Yeah. I had a few too many coffees this morning. Okay, so where are you? Where am I?
Yeah, for me right now, I'm just feeling really sad and a little bit confused. Like if I just, for what's just present with me right now.
Yeah.
And I have a sense that I'm telling myself a few lies. And that's why I'm feeling a bit confused, because have a feeling that a lot of this is just a layer of bullshit. I tell myself a story that I really like people and I'm just hopeless socially and all of these things because it makes me seem unintimidating. And I don't know, I've got this sensation I'm like sinking or settling. And all of that stuff is just stories about why I perceive myself as being so socially inept.
So I would stay with the sinking feeling and let the images and the story sink at the same time. Like let them settle.
So as I'm doing that, what I'm noticing is a refusal or a rejection of the idea that sometimes some people just aren't up for connection.
Yeah.
It's like I can't accept that. And now I can see the hundreds of ways that I'm not up for connection sometimes. Oh, that blew that one up.
Yes.
It's a very young, very naive thought. Yeah, I'm just continuing to settle down if you want to go.
Yep. I see that. Okay, that there's some sort of. I mean, the question that came at the end there for me was, why? What does it give me to keep this sense of separation, to not connect with these people, and yeah, I mean, it just goes to the other side. I see that, me connecting with people sometimes is not the best thing. Some people are crazy. Yeah, it's like a blind need at times. So it doesn't always have my sort of best interest at heart. So, I mean, that's a little bit of a stretch to say that, but that seems to be the implication for me. Yeah, and then I sort of come and I see it on the other side of this. Like I see it in the peace of being alone and, not being disturbed by like incessant conversation or, interesting. Or the other, like now I'm experiencing the image of someone doing to me what I'd be doing to them, like trying to make that connection in that desperate sort of way. And I see that, that there's something that's a bit distasteful about it. It makes me want to separate. And actually, yeah, okay. So in my mind, it's not like a full separation or anything either. In my mind, it's showing me kindly enough that, okay, but I just need to, there's some person that's yakking in my ear, and there's that need that they have with them for something, and there's this sense of like, whoa, just give me a little bit of space and calm down, and like sort of waiting for them to move through their needs so they fall back into themselves and can just rest there. And then I feel a connection with them. I feel a connection with myself, the sensation of me. Um, um, yeah, and then I feel that with them as well. Okay, sorry, and just last little bit too, is it goes a tiny bit further and shows me that that actually I don't need them to feel that within themselves. That if I'm centered within me and they're like yapping or doing whatever, that I can still feel like a connection and love in that moment as well. And this doesn't seem definite either. It just seems like it's toggling through different perspectives. Not letting me get stuck on one thing, which I think at the start I was. That feels quite nice. I can just rest there, mate.
Yeah, I was following along with you. Yeah, I'm just sort of noticing how. So I have something coming up on Wednesday where I have to go to the school and help clean and move furniture and stuff. And I've already prepared myself that I'm going to feel like I feel today, and I just have to put it. And it's sad. And so I'm just trying to question that, and what keeps coming up for me is my dad, because he doesn't talk to anyone, and he's comfortable in a room of people sitting there on his own talking to no one.
Yeah.
So I'm just sort of trying to open myself up to the idea that a lack of conversation doesn't necessarily mean a lack in me, which I've decided that it does. And here's my dad showing me that it doesn't.
Hey, something interesting just came into my mind too. I'm wondering if you can sit inside of your dad's body in that image. As if your dad was sitting in that room with all those people and you were sitting inside of your dad.
That brings up a lot of emotion. I'm not sure why. Yeah, so what floods me at first is the idea, well, he's all I need. I could be around a million people. If I just had him, I wouldn't need anybody else. But when that sort of settles and I actually sit in him and feel what his energy, how I perceive his energy, it's just this grounded peace. He's open to help, but he doesn't need anything from anyone. And it's affecting every single cell in my body. I can feel this just everything's just gone quiet.
Mm.
There's no searching. There's no uncomfortableness, awkwardness. There's no hatred. It's open.
Yeah. Hey, there's like one little more step that's come into my mind. But tell me when you're ready. Oh.
You okay?
Yeah. I'm just like the repercussions of this next part. I was feeling.
Okay, I'm ready for the next part.
Well, it comes into my mind to like, now's the time to throw yourself onto that cross. And it's funny because it's a Catholic school, right? And then it comes into my mind about this confession, the idea of confession. And there's something here that we could express to the people in this room that is our greatest fear, but it's also the thing that will set us free. Do you know, there's some part of us that's hiding something, that all the anxiety and anger and all the things that, you know, all the avenues of escape and expressions and hiding and all of that, it's all centered around this one thought or one identity. And like now is the moment to say what that might be, in the middle of that room. And it's not necessarily something that you have to share, I would say, either, like out loud.
What comes up for me is a question, an unsaid question that you don't go to with people.
Yeah.
And it's can I trust you to receive me if I be myself? And I just feel like that holds it all back, holds back the conversation, the smiles, the eye contact, the connecting, the being silly, the being fun, the being playful. It was all held back by that question for me.
Yeah. Could you say it again?
Can I trust you to receive me if I be myself?
So kind of what's the antithesis of this?
Does that mean opposite?
What's the outcome? Yeah. Like what's the outcome if they can't? Oh.
It's not what I expected. So the outcome is, oh, okay, then cool. That you don't matter. That not that you don't matter as a human, but
yeah.
I end up being myself anyway because I know where I stand or something.
For me, I just get attacked. Like the sensation and it's a symbol in my mind, and it's just like attacked, and it becomes see-through, so that there's nothing left there to attack anymore. And yeah, that's quite interesting, actually. It leaves me in this place where there might still be this sense of aggression or whatever outside of me, but it can't actually touch me in any way. It sort of just moves through, or it's on the outside or something. It's not entirely right to say it's on the outside, but it's there's not a solidness to me. There's not a solidness to this part that is vulnerable and, is good and is a bit childish and does that stop me from being myself, is the question that comes with that. It stops me from needing to be a particular way. It stops me from needing to play the role of that, if that was the case. And it seems to allow me to be like, yeah. My foot's fallen asleep. Wake up. Wake up.
Is that a viewer?
Yeah.
Cheap.
Is that a what?
Self-destructive hop.
What is that?
On the right side on my screen, above the restream box where it says messages from audience will display here. Above that, it's got like a symbol of a person with self-destructive hop written on it. Is that someone that's joined? Or is it just advertising?
Oh, I think it's just
Can you see it?
advertising. Yeah. Yeah. It's like on the chat or something. Cheap viewers on viewers.world. Oh,
Yeah.
whatever. If there's no viewers, if no viewers come, then no viewers come. That's okay. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting at the end, I think that
I just got to write.
Yeah.
Yeah, same for me. I feel like a total question mark in front of all the stories that I've been telling myself.
Yeah. I'm like noticing that, okay, that when this sort of identity is I don't know. It's interesting when there's no identity, then it doesn't sort of matter what's coming up. Like there's no stance and there's no limitation. And there's no like thought of vulnerability or and it's like completely unknown too, because whatever can come in the moment. It's not mechanical. It's not reactive. It's not proactive even. It's not something I'm adopting for some reason. It's not denying in any way. It's not saying that the reciprocation has to look a particular way or be a particular way.
Mm-hmm.
It's making me a little bit think about this book. Radical Honesty or something it's called, where there's just the straight, like you just put
Tara
everything
Brach.
out on the table. I don't know who wrote it. I thought it was some dude called Richard, but I could be wrong. Radical Honesty. Like think in those moments that you're sitting in the group of people and there's that introspection happening that's I'm not good enough and these people don't like me and and if you can just like put it all out on the table constantly until there's nothing left to put out on the table.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that would look, but
Time for another coffee.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, no, I'm feeling. I'm going to do some more work on this, because I can see for me that I'm on the search from people. I'm wanting something from them. Basically, I'm wanting that question answered. And I've written down here, you know, if they do, then what? And if they don't, then what? And it's all got to do with, of course, with what I get to feel or what I have to feel, and judging certain feelings. Like if I'm feeling lovable, that's a good thing. That's what you should feel, that you're lovable. And if I'm feeling that there's no connection and maybe I think there's something wrong with me, or whatever story I'm making up, that's a bad thing to feel and I shouldn't feel that. But yeah, it would go further and further. It will go further than that. So this searching from people, which I think I do, must be really annoying. Searching to get something from them so that then I get to decide, or I get to then think, well, that's the appropriate feeling that I have to feel. It's no power in that at all. Or not even power. There's no self what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not relying on myself at all.
Mm. Self-determination.
Yeah.
So, like what I hear you say is
something.
that after you. Yeah, that's the point.
I'd finished. Yeah.
It brings me back around to this, like chasing and running away from feeling. Chasing and running away from feeling, wanting to feel connected and loved and safe and da 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 da. And like, there's such a big buzzwords and things at the moment. This idea of being safe and feeling connected and all of these things, but it's a shadow of the actual. It's like the skin of the actual feeling of connectedness.
And it's also got the assumption that you get those things from the outside, or that it's because you didn't get those things from outside as a child. And that's not coming home to yourself at all. That's the opposite of that.
No, it's not true. It might have been true. Maybe there was some part of it that where you were brought outside of yourself, or And okay, it just comes in at the end a little bit, this idea of having relationships and friendships, and that they are based on need in some ways, the need to feel something in particular and not feel something in particular, and probably those things are meshed in together, you know, with the real as well. There's definitely times with people and relationships where I'm looking for something, or I'm looking to not feel something, and
Yeah, if I think of a couple of like my friends who are sort of long-time friends that that I really, really value and are close to, the ones that that I kind of feel a sense of sort of peace with are the ones that challenge me. They're the ones that say, Alison, you're full of shit, get your head out of your ass. They're not the ones that always make me feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does that tie into that question?
I suppose in those moments, because I'm the same with them, we have that trust, and the challenge comes from a place of caring, I think.
Ah. So you already know that they love you and care for you, and that's the part that's where the trust is. And then the second part of that is the trust in the honesty, that they can say, hey, you're being this or you're being that type of thing. They can give you an accurate reflection of what's going on.
Yeah.
Whereas new people that you meet, you don't trust that they love you, which is interesting. Like, it's interesting. That immediately makes me think of like the bigger, like a bigger view, because underpinning that is this thought that I can't, like the universe is both trustworthy and untrustworthy. Oh man, my mind gets a little bit like pulled into that quite interestingly.
Yeah, because we're always looking out at the world, aren't we? We're always looking out at people.
Well,
looking out at the.
I think it's also reflective of ourselves. You're also saying that you can and can't trust yourself. It has to be that. It has to be that as well. I'm like looking again at this idea of the bigger sense of things. Well,